try to balance it, but you know.
No, but now you are underrepresented this time. But there are two men. There are two men online. Oh, men.
Yeah.
Okay, we can start now with the first panel discussion. Apparently, we had to wait a little bit longer for the stream. So, once the war in Ukraine is over, the country will no doubt need a major reconstruction. This reconstruction will be the largest rebuilding effort in Europe after the Second World War and is already estimated at hundreds of billions of dollars. What will be the space for civil society in this undertaking? We believe that there is an open door not only for delivering services, but also for influencing the public sphere and policies. What is the value added of NGOs in this process? That's the topic of the first discussion panel hosted by Daniel Kaba, Executive Director of Ambrela. So, Dano, the floor is yours, and I wish you a very good conversation.
Thank you very much, Eva. And also, again, I would like to say many thanks to our panelists. Let me briefly introduce them, but then we'll jump straight ahead into the very discussions. After 50 minutes roughly, maybe an hour, there would be a room for you to pose any questions or comments you may have. We don't have a Slido or any kind of AI or stuff like that. We want to have it as vivid as possible and in person as much as possible. So I will start with our guests on my left. We have Andrea Najbertová. Andrea is also a colleague of mine, but primarily she is the director of People in Need Slovakia. And simultaneously, as I proceeded, she is also a board member of Ambrela. Andrea, welcome.
Thank you for the invitation.
And we also have Miss Ambassador of Germany to Slovakia, Barbara Wolf. And I will only dwell a bit at your name, because you're not only a diplomat being deployed to the nice diplomatic scenarios around Europe, but you have also many years under your belt when it comes to deployments in conflict areas or development settings. So thank you very much too for being here. And we have also two colleagues of ours who quite logically cannot make it today in person. Let me start with Valerie Bezus. Good morning. I hope that we can hear each other.
Good morning, thank you. Yeah, I'm here.
Perfect, perfect. Lovely to have you. Mr. Valery Bezus is advisor to the Minister of the Ministry for Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development in Ukraine. As is probably in the programme, I must say and also make apologies on behalf of the Deputy Minister, Mr. Alexander Butenko, who couldn't make it today because of some unnoticed events. So Mr. Valery Bezus, welcome too. And then we have our colleague from NGO sector, Roman Nicovic. Roman is a research director of the Dixie Group, Ukrainian think tank, NGO. Roman, welcome to in our panel.
Thank you, Daniel. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start. It is split into 3 sections. Just to give you a basic overview. And I'm also very happy that we have also people in the audience. I would especially like to highlight we have also a Ukrainian ambassador with us, and also from the Ministry and Development Agency of the Czech Republic representatives, and many others of you who are really focusing on Ukraine, which is great, and feel free to step in the end of our panel. But we got 3 rounds. The first one is about okay, what is the perception of civil society by different actors? I mean, the main ones, mainly the general public, politicians, decision makers, from different angles: donor perspective, Ukrainian perspective, CSO perspective, and so on and so forth. Then we would like to move on a bit to the very process stuff when it comes to what is the actually overall framework, how can the civil society chip in and participate when it comes to the reconstruction of Ukraine. And the third part would be, okay, so also sector-wise, how to provide the assistance, how to improve it. We'll probably talk also, because we have the ministry I mentioned, a lot about winterization, energy, heating system, and so on and so forth. So that could be also very interesting to hear from you, Valerie. Yeah. So that's for the beginning. And I would like to start with you ladies. Andrea, what is your experience since Russia's full-scale invasion last year when it comes to perception of the civil society? What has changed probably in the course of the time? I guess that it wasn't stable all the time. There were many, whatever, upside downs, we can say that. And how that also relates to your work, because your work is also very much connected with policy advocacy. The panel is on. So if you can maybe share with us a few thoughts or experience about the last 1.5 years.
Thank you very much. I have mentioned already in the past year's conference that as concerns general public, we have seen an unprecedented level of support in the last year, which has allowed us to really step up our efforts to react and respond to the needs on the ground, both in Slovakia and directly in Ukraine. And while we see that the financial support maybe from the general public is not at the levels that we have seen in the period following the outbreak of the war, and while we hear voices that the support in the general public for our work is dwindling, I think there is still a very relevant piece of the society which is supporting people of Ukraine affected by the war, and which is supporting our work and which understands the importance of our work. When it comes to the perception of our work and of the civil society sector by the policymakers, this is a bit different regarding our work in Slovakia and regarding our work directly in Ukraine. Maybe just shortly, also just to compare, in Slovakia, many CSOs, including humanitarian and development actors, were on the borders from the first days, were active in organizing and providing assistance. And while there was a phase when the government looked a bit with a level of distrust, but after a couple of weeks, there was a very clear shift and very clear recognition of the contribution of civil society organizations to successfully managing organizing assistance to people fleeing the war, either directly on the border or in the different cities. When it comes to our work directly in Ukraine, There, we are building on long-term cooperation with the Slovak Agency for International Development Cooperation. We have long-established contacts and partnership. Yes, it took the ministry and the agency a bit longer to respond with a call to call for partnership with CSO sector to provide humanitarian assistance in Ukraine. But we do appreciate that there were then the amounts were increased for cooperation, and then there were multiple calls. Just to reflect a bit on the reconstruction, there I'm aware of different initiatives by policymakers to include the business sector. I'm not aware of initiatives to discuss how CSOs could contribute to reconstruction efforts. And I would like to use also this plenary to extend the invitation to the policymakers. We are ready to support, to join in the efforts. I think CSOs have very valuable experience for all strands of Ukraine reconstruction.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I was just thinking that if we're going to stay at a very diplomatic level, but then you unpack it a bit more, very directly, but proactively. Thank you for that. Before I pass over to Roman with the next question, no worries, there's no the same question for each and every panelist. I think that we really need to develop it on this topic, the perception of civil society, because then it would determine all our other steps and next steps. Because if we would portray civil society and perceive differently, then also its role in the reconstruction of Ukraine would look different to a lesser or larger extent. It's probably nothing new, I just said. But many times the perception is they are just, carrying sandbags and providing hot tea and saving lives on the border. They are all volunteers, right? And there are charitable organizations at the maximum. Of course, this is not the view of each and every politician, but that's what we experience many times, especially when it comes to those who are not in direct touch and daily touch with civil society and humanitarian affairs. And then, when it comes to reconstruction of Ukraine, as Andrea has said, we would also speak about the tangible stuff when it comes to energy, when it comes to shelter, and the other sector and subsectors, but also that there's this intangible, right, thing, which is crucial as well for the whole society. I'm pretty sure that you all heard about and came across the mental health statistics when it comes to post-trauma and stuff like that, when it comes to the Ukrainian population. There are millions of people in need of mental health care and assistance. So it's not only about providing infrastructure-wise things, I would say. And then we have another, let's say, after tangible and intangible division, we also can talk today about policy level and co-creating, giving inputs when it comes to creating different policies, whatever it may be, social affairs, Green Deal, and also when it comes to the integration into the European Union. But now, because it's not about the moderator, back to Roman. Roman, from your point, from your perspective, you are based in Ukraine, you are Ukrainian, and how is it the civil society when it comes to trust, for instance? We know that trust being one of the main ingredients, right, of each and every society. There is this trust index. Did it change, or could you also say a few words about it and the perception there in Ukraine?
Yes, absolutely. So as a research director, I do start with numbers. So based on the recent polls of Razumkov Center and of Civic Engagement poll by PACT, we do see indeed the increased trust first in volunteer organizations from 64 before the war to 84%, and to civil society organizations from 47% before the war to above 60% now. You may even be interested that 30% of respondents believe that new political elites could emerge from volunteer circles, from volunteers, and 19% from civil society organizations, which is quite interesting, dimension of this trust. However, I would clearly differentiate the work of civil society organization and citizen participation, since it is the volunteers and financial donations to support war-related efforts which contributed to the growth of this trust. So people generally believe that build a democratic and prosperous Ukraine is impossible without involvement of civil society organizations, but are less likely to support the activities of CSOs, but are ready to donate money to efforts related to recovery. And that is the main thing we need to understand, that it was the main driver of this trust, was the engagement into support of military and some grassroots initiatives related to recovery. This resulted, of course, in emergence of new generation of civil society organizations, but also, we need to understand that the citizen participation may not, always have the form of, CSO work. Second driver, I think, was the factor that we have now less influence of Russian propaganda, which used to be, to describe civil society before the war as, people of Soros, some puppets of West, etc. Now we have less of this factor, and this contributes to this trust. And third, of course, driver is adaptation of activities of existing organizations. They did not change much the purpose, but the approach they were. So let me illustrate it by our case as a think tank. So of course we continue supporting policy with programming and thinking of long-term sustainable and green reconstruction of Ukraine, like working on the draft National Energy and Climate Plan by 2030. But now we are also part of Humanitarian Assistance Working Party at the Ministry of Energy, ensuring the balanced distribution of humanitarian aid to the most affected companies. We are now also advocating more sanctions on Russia and use of Russian frozen assets to compensate for damage. And we also organize a dedicated events to fundraise, so to use these donations to military. So of course our core activity is policy advice, policy work, but we also changed due to the war and due to the needs. And that's how I think we retain our trust, retain our renommee, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you, Roman, for your contribution and also naming the drivers. It was very interesting to hear. Barbara, back to you. You represent also one of the largest donors in the world, basically, the European Union, the US and Germany, or vice versa. How do you see it, the cooperation from a donor's perspective, and maybe less about humanitarian donorship and cooperation, more into the reconstruction and development cooperation? Maybe also take into consideration the Bundesministerium or German Foreign Office or GIZ. How is it? Maybe you are planning some new instruments where NGOs can step in, or maybe you are thinking about other stuff. Germany being known of some spearheading some innovations and stuff like that. So please.
Thank you very much. But let me start by saying something in a non-donor role. And I think I start with paying tributes to Slovak civil society, and just to underline what you had said about the rapid reaction of civil society to the start of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. I think this is something that everyone living here has recognized with a lot of appreciation, that you were the first on the borders, but also that there was, besides the humanitarian aspect, a strong advice aspect also. I think taking up the advice to refugees coming over the border, how to arrange their stay, what is the legal basis. So this was another aspect, I think, where we can pay tribute to what has been happening. And this is already, I don't know, making a bridge to the second point, because I think in our perspective, we would not see civil society mainly as a service provider, also as a service provider, but also as a political actor, as a political and a societal actor. And I think this brings me to the donor role in Ukraine, and I think this is something which has been developed in German politics over the last years already, that civil society has to play a role and has to play a strong role. That's why we continue to develop new mechanisms on how to include civil society. And I mean, this is not only civil society, but also different layers of state actors, not only on a national level, but also on a communal level. And I think what has been special in the Ukrainian case, because it's so manifold, that we have created a huge platform, which is also online, a huge platform on reconstruction of Ukraine. And I would invite anyone who is interested to visit this platform. It's in German, it's in English, but it's also on Ukrainian, because this platform aim is really to connect people, to create networks. And it's not only on a very general approach, it even provides thematic meetings where people can hook up and really try to contact each other, also to build bridges to European support. So just to say, I think civil society for us is a key actor. We will come back to this in the next round, a key actor also with a very strong political role.
Thank you very much, Barbara. And I guess we'll also come to some very concrete steps in the upcoming months. The German government is planning. Valerie, back to you. And maybe for the sake of time, I will bridge this with a second round, which is more about the process and framework of how to involve civil society meaningfully in the reconstruction of Ukraine. So, from your angle of the ministry that is very large, right, having many deputies and many responsibilities. Could you please share with us what are the main elements also lying ahead of us when it comes to processes, milestones, where you see the main potential of civil society? I already mentioned that it is not necessarily only in the intangible area, but also when it comes to providing generators that is directly linked to your ministry, heating systems. But we would like to hear more from you. So please, go ahead.
Thank you. And first of all, let me use this opportunity to express, on behalf of the ministry, our sincere gratitude for this tremendous support to the Slovak Republic, to Germany, to our other partners. It's extremely important for us on multi-dimensional levels, both physically and mentally, to have this support and have this readiness to support us further. As for the civil society engagement, it's important to mention that, of course, there is a huge call for the involvement of the third sector of Ukraine, especially when we talk about transparency. It's not a secret that a lot of manipulations going around, but a lot of challenges going around the issue of transparency, and especially the role of the civil society to put as much as possible light on the transparency, and especially it's important when we talk about the process of terrorist attacks, mitigation measures, and restoration process. I think the transparency in the spheres is the key. But I want to underline another key point of engagement from the civil society actors. I think we all understand that the institutional capacities for the government and for the governmental bodies, for any of them, are not limitless. But the challenges are huge. And again, the challenges multidimensional on multi-levels. Of course, we have the overwhelming challenge of the war and on the terrorist attacks. But as a nation, we do not have a timeout dealing with other challenges: energy transition, climate change mitigations, social disruption, so on and so on. Especially taking into account that the Ukrainian nation itself is in the process of reforming the whole range of sectors. So we need a sound engagement from the civil society on such processes, and we just do not have as a government, as governmental bodies, as I have mentioned, the institutional capacity to develop sound and sustainable solutions and to make sound decisions, especially taking into account the challenge for the public management, public governments, when in normal situations, let's say the ministry should be only focused on development, the policy in some sphere. And now the ministry has to deal with all the range of operational issues, mitigating all the crises, or all the consequences of the crises from the terrorist attacks, from the war, from other challenges. So I believe that the engagement, the involvement, the civil society actors is extremely important from the purely pragmatic point of view. I need to mention that there are a lot of challenges in front of the civil society bodies, the civil society actors as well, because I think Ukraine is quite famous already for its possibility, for its civil society's possibility for the self-organizations. But usually we tend to express our extreme qualities ad hoc and crises. So it's important to face, for the civil society actors, to face the challenge for sustainable cooperation and sustainable involvement. I have to mention that we have as well established regulatory base for the civil society actors' involvement into the process of the policy forming and policies realization. Unfortunately, during the war, due to the martial law, some dispositions of this regulatory framework are suspended. Let me recall this very nice and productive instrument like public consults at the governmental bodies. From my point of view, it's extremely useful instrument, not just for the civil society to influence the decision-making process, but for the governmental bodies, for the ministries or the agencies to use the expertise which some actors, at least from the civil societies, have to develop sound decisions. Again, luckily, we have quite mature and established actors in those sectors of civil societies when it comes to the professional communities. We have think tanks like the Dixie Group, like the Rosenkovs and others. Maybe it's not, maybe we do not have such a number of mature NGOs. It can represent not just the professional communities, but the different segments of the other different segments from civil society. And there are some challenges in this sphere. But again, let me underline that from my point of view and from the point of view of the ministry, on the ministry's team, it's important to cooperate with the civil society actors, at least on the two levels. So transparency and the sound solution, sound decision development and making.
Thank you. Thank you, Valerie. Yeah, that was quite elaborative. Thank you also for details. Maybe we can try to shorten it with our contributions. And definitely I wanted to also give you floor in the next round, so no worries. Yeah. So please, let's try to be as specific, as concrete as possible. Barbara, back to you. When it comes to the framework and involvement of civil society, but also the other actors, could you please shed a bit more light on what's there waiting for us in the upcoming weeks and months? What maybe concretely German government is preparing for, where also Central Eastern European, counting Germany as a Central European country, can also be involved as partners, not only civil society, but also maybe state actors as well.
Thank you very much, and I think I will also go back to what you have said on transparency and how to deliver aid, and I think also some of the limitations you hinted to on a state level. I think one of the next events will be coming up is on a communal level. So we have started to organize conferences on communal partnerships. So in total we have 180 Ukrainian-German communal partnerships, and the next meeting is going to take place in November in Leipzig, just to show another dimension of how you can cooperate. But the big next event, which is coming up next year in Germany in the middle of June, is the next Ukraine Reconstruction Recovery Conference. So Germany is taking up what has been done in London last year. I think in London the conference has been very much focused on business cooperation. We will continue to look at this cooperation also, but civil society as a driving force in reforms will also play a role. Another area which will be tackled is, on a very practical point of view, is mine clearance. So this is the big event in June next year in Berlin. Preparations have been starting already, and there are a lot of visits also going on with actors, I think, to discuss with Ukrainian actors. So I think there is a many-layered process. I wouldn't say Germany is well known for its easy cooperation mechanisms. It's very manifold, but what we are really trying to do is create transparency on our own aid also, and you can find a lot of information on public available websites from the German government. So I would encourage everyone who is interested in checking this information.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for also these very concrete invitations. As I promised, Valerie, back to you. But please try to be slightly briefer so that we will also have space for the audience to maybe pose the questions to you and to the others. So could you also, maybe similarly as Barbara has said, outline for us practically, and when it comes to the competency of your ministry, what's there, what we can expect in the nearest future. You can also connect it with the, of course, very heated, in a way, topic, and that is winterization, right? So please tell us more about what's there. We can expect, and we can also think ahead and plan together.
Yeah, thank you. Again, as the ministry forms and as for now it even executes policies in quite a range of spheres, from the communities development, from the infrastructure, transport development, urban infrastructure development, and so we try to be as transparent and as open as it's possible. Especially when it comes to using all the opportunities, all the possibilities from the digitalization instruments. We have been developing a special platform which is called a Dream platform for the full transparency for the restoration process. We do not forget about our responsibility to proceed with the crucial reforms, and let me recall the hugely important decentralization reform. And now we've been working hard on the amendments of our regional development strategy till 2027, and we put a lot of efforts to open this process, and which is important to get as much feedback from the communities, from the civil society actors on how to proceed with such a reform. Again, unfortunately, such instrument like a public council, let's say, is suspended, but we do have requirements from the regulatory framework to publish all our draft regulatory act and to gather and process all the feedbacks from the civil society. So we are trying to be as much proactive in this process as it's possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And while listening to you, I just once again realized how somehow we perceive not only civil society but the country, Ukraine, right? As if it would be facing only the war and the crisis connected to the war, although the reality is very, very different, probably far from it. And as you said, Ukraine has also many other challenges as us and the other countries. And on top of that, there is, of course, a war. Andrea, maybe for someone a tough question, but for you it probably wouldn't be the case. We are still on the soil of Central Eastern European donors and partners. So what would you say, what might be the, and probably are, based on your experience, comparative advantages of NGOs from Central Eastern Europe when it comes to providing assistance, development cooperation towards Ukraine?
I probably wouldn't talk about comparative advantages, but I would talk about what we, as civil society organizations based in Central and Eastern Europe, can provide to partners in Ukraine, be it the civil society or local government, or being a partner in the official development assistance of the Slovak Republic. So when it comes to cooperation with Ukrainian civil society and administration, it has been mentioned already by my previous speakers that Ukraine does have a strong and experienced civil society sector, which has really responded fast, which has experience in reforms and good governance projects, and partially also, as the conflict has been going on since 2014, a strong experience in humanitarian sector. So as Barbara mentioned also for the donors, I think I would describe us as a bridging actor, someone to support the efforts of the Ukraine actors, as they should be in the driving seat for reconstruction efforts. What we can bring in, because I consider we do share some similar pathways and experience. We have both experienced transition from communism to democracies. We are somewhere in between the traditional CSO actors coming from mostly Western Europe and between South-based CSOs. We both had to scale up largely our work following the outbreak of war. So what we can bring is sharing experience. Slovakia has been itself a recipient 20 years ago of official development assistance. We do have now 20 years of experience working in other international contexts. This is something that we can bring. Our CSO sector can bring experience from the EU accession process. In terms of service delivery, also our approach as an organization is to see where we can bridge the gaps, where we can complement the efforts of Ukrainian civil society, help to build the capacities of smaller actors. But everything needs to happen really in partnership and in partnership with Ukrainian civil society, and with them having the driving role, together also, of course, with the role of the Ukrainian state, as the crisis is one of what makes the humanitarian and reconstruction situation a bit different from other global crises, is that we have a functioning state who is also in the leading role of driving the efforts.
Yep. Thank you for sharing this with us. Okay, so now we have roughly 10 minutes to go. So as we promised, it's also time for your questions or comments. We have a colleague of mine somewhere here in the room with a mic, so please just feel free, raise your hand. Ideally, if you can stand out. I see a hand there, so please, if you can pass the mic. And I think we can absorb 2 more questions. Maybe we can have 1 round of questions, so if there's anybody else, you can get ready too. And I think yeah, in the meantime, Barbara wants to say a small remark. Barbara, please.
No, I just wanted to pick up on one point that you said, Andrea, also, and which is EU. And I think I should have mentioned it maybe earlier, but we also see the conference in a sort of a context of the EU enlargement. I think we know Ukraine is also preparing for joining the European Union. I think this is some experience which really you can also share with Ukraine, and this is also one of the political frameworks that we deem important in our cooperation on recovery, to have this political context on EU enlargement and the necessary reforms for joining EU also as a part of the process.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, so I think we have the mic. If not, I can give you mine. And let's start with the questions.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Great to be here and to discuss such an important topic. My name is Vladlena Marzinkevich. I represent the network of civil society organizations in Central and Eastern Europe, which is called Bankwatch. And I'm also Ukrainian and head of the board of the Ukrainian environmental NGO EcoAction. Coming from the name of my organization, we are following closely the financial flows and financial assistance which is coming to the country in Ukraine. also the reconstruction planning and the sustainability of the efforts. I have not much questions but remarks, mostly coming from the area of the work that we are doing. So a couple of remarks about the CSOs. What we were observing is that it is definitely recognized that CSOs have an important and vibrant role now in the country, and the usual mandate which we were having is that we were watchdogging the government and its activities, but I think since the war started, since the invasion, the roles and expectations also has changed, and as of now, and it was already mentioned, and I can confirm that there is a huge necessity for us as civil society to be involved in all spheres with all the experiences and also to be the meaningful partner in the policy planning. Because we know that the civil society is also mostly and being pioneers in many spheres, be it the green recovery topic, be it the sustainability, transparency, justice, or transition. And here I come to the situation that we would like to see the meaningful involvement with the civil society. And we investigated how in that area we can include and use the experiences from the European Union, for instance, and in relation to the foreign assistance and which would be coming to Ukraine. And I here would like to bring the experience and the current process of the Ukraine facility development. This facility would be coming from the European Union in amount of 50 billion. And currently the process is that in December it would be approved by the Council in parallel with also the Council decision on the EU accession. So we were involved and engaged with the European institutions providing proposals for the amendments to the text. And actually, the European Parliament was active and took on board our proposal to ensure that the European experiences applied to the European funds, meaning the involvement of CSOs and application of the partnership principle would be ensured, meaning that all the socio-economic partners would be the partners in the process of the full cycle of the programming and up to the project eventually monitoring. So this is our proposal of the concrete issue which actually the European Union countries and member states could share their experiences and help developing in Ukraine the meaningful space and to structure the dialogue properly.
Vladlena, if I can briefly interrupt this, sorry.
Yes.
If I may, please. Thank you very much for valuable insights. I think it was also very interesting, but in order not to steal the time also from potentially the other participants who can also maybe ask a question or comment, if you can briefly in one sentence formulate your question. If there is no question, that's also perfectly fine, yes. But please, let's also take into account the other participants. Thank you.
So my question would be to the representative of the Germany. We know about the Ukrainian Recovery Conference upcoming, so we would like to see the focus of the conference being on civil society involvement and also the meaningful participation of the municipalities. What do you think about if there is a possibility to ensure these topics would be the key? Thank you.
Please, Barbara.
So I think my understanding is that both of these topics are well represented, both municipalities and both civil society. I think what is key also that there is a dialogue with the Ukrainian government who is also involved, and that you are singing from the same sheet to say there. But I think from our side, I can only underscore the willingness to have this broad-based approach. And I think given the long experience we have in Ukraine, I think we have enough partners also to be able to carry this through. So completely agree with you, I think, on the message.
Thank you for a swift reply. Is there any other comment or question? Please. Now it's time to speak. I don't see any other volunteers or any other hands. Okay, that's fine. We still have a couple of minutes to go. You can think about what you want to ask. Maybe briefly back to our speakers. So we did capitalize on their presence here. Could you please briefly formulate one key message, if that's possible, or two maximum, what you would like to convey to our audience today?
I mean, I mentioned it already before. For me, it's crucial that the Ukrainian civil society seats in the driving force, as they have the experience, as they have a long-standing expertise of engaging citizens, responding to the needs of communities, and they can't be left alone. So it's also for us to support them in a way that will lead to a sustainable, human-centered reconstruction that takes into account also needs of vulnerable communities.
Thank you for raising this up again, and I very much like the term you, I don't know if coined, but mentioned, bridging actors, right? To be a bridging actor. Back to you, Valerie, if you can make a shortened version of your, let's say, main remark from your side to the audience, please.
Yeah, thank you. Try to be as short as possible. I think it's important to have this very productive and very constructive point of view on how to structurize the cooperation between different bodies, different stakeholders, and it's important to provide and to push as much as possible the approach, the collaboration approach of development of all decisions, because it's not very constructive, I guess, to proceed with the antagonistic relationships with the bodies, because especially during the crises, during the war times, it's hard to separate different bodies of a nation, because actually we work on the very high level of motivation, and it's not a usual situation even for public servants to work on their points of focus. So I hope that we will come to kind of convergation on how to approach the restoration and the rebuilding our country. And for sure, the third sector, the civil society actors, should and must play the key role as a representative of the civil society in this process, but not with the conflict of an antagonistic relationship with different actors. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie, also for, let's say, sharing with us the perspective of a high-level, let's say, government official or an advisor. Roman, back to you. Your couple of sentences at the end.
So my message is that reconstruction would require multi-layered governance, and civil society actors needs to be engaged in monitoring, regulating, and decision-making activities. However, we need to understand that we are humans working into a 24-hour, day, as not superheroes. So, of course, we would need institutional development, and we need to understand that we cannot replace some things that other actors need to do. So we cannot fully substitute the government because we need to work hand in hand, but we cannot, replace someone. We can help, we can support, we can do our role.
Thank you. And Barbara, you have the privilege to have the last word, except me, so please go ahead.
So my message is be daring, don't be shy. I think you, Slovak civil society, showed what you could do during the last month. There are many Ukrainian civil society initiatives here in Slovakia which also showed their immense power in helping and supporting. We as donors, we value you. I see colleagues from UNHCR who also have a strong cooperation with civil society. So the message, I think, on behalf of donors, if I may say so, is please dialogue with us. We are happy to work with you and we encourage you to have your voices heard.
Thank you, Barbara, too. I can only say that the main messages were not prepared before, just to reassure you. And I think that we are at the very end of our panel. I hope that you enjoyed it and find it somehow practical. I just want to say that we also have today with us people and partners from really the whole region. We have here also not only from the Czech Republic, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the State Secretary gonna be with us in the afternoon, but also from Austria, from Austrian Development Agency. We have also people from Lithuania, from Poland, I think, from Hungary, and from other regions and countries. So please really enjoy and make use of it also during the break. That will really fuel your appetite for more partnerships. Thank you for coming and to be here with us for this panel, for attention. And now I will pass it over to Eva, who will briefly announce what's next. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dano, and thank you, ladies. Thank you for your fruitful and inspiring discussion talking about the major role that civil society plays and will play in the reconstruction of Ukraine and all the processes taking place in the country.
We are just staring at each other. I just also wanted to say thank you to our online panelists.
I'm sorry,
too.
so
No problem,
I shouldn't
fine.
be here, but okay, I will sit down for a minute. No, it's up to you to conclude.
Yes, I just want to say also thanks to our online panelists, as I said, Roman, and also to Valerie. Thank you for your time, for being with us. Have a good day.
Thank you, gentlemen. And ladies, thank you once again. This is the end of the first panel discussion. I will see you again at 11:10. I would like to just inform you that if you are interested in our second panel discussion on the food crisis and climate change in the Horn of Africa, you are very much welcomed to come back here again at 11:10. But you may also be much more interested in deep talks, which will talk about donor fatigue and indoor refugee costs, which are rising in some EU member states. We believe that the next deep talk might be useful, especially for those of you who are public officers. So it's really up to you to decide if you want to join us here on the main stage for the plenary or deep talks. So 11:10, see you.